Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman have it wrong.
We have to beg Democrats to do this show, and most of them don't. Bernie, we've reached out dozens of times. We don't even get a response. AOC, we've reached out dozens of times. Twice we got a no, 10 times or 20 times. We don't even hear back. Okay, we've tried Obama. I get it. He's a former president. Who the hell am I? But the point is, Trump did a ton of shows. J.D. Vance did a ton of shows. They're doing Lex Friedman, they're doing Rogan, they're doing Theo Vaughn, they're doing Dave Ramsey, Patrick Bet-David, Dr. Phil. It's hard for me to say this without sounding like, how dare they turn me down? That's not the point I want to make. I get turning me down, but the bigger point here is, it's not a do you know who I am. I
want you conservatives to consider this fact. Again, David Pakman is a guy who would not be a big BLM guy, would not be a big defund the police guy. I believe he's supportive of Israel. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But a lot of very middle of the ground, middle of the road sort of centrist type of positions. Even somebody as mild as David Pakman can't get access to someone like AOC. Can't get access to the mainstream Democrats, just the establishment Democrats don't want to come on his show. Contrast that with the right-wing media. You can be pretty far right and have access to the former president of the United States. You can be pretty far right and have access to multiple Republican, senators, high-ranking people, right? So which side do you think is more extreme? The side where the far-right people have access to people with a lot of power? Or is it the left-wing media, where somebody as milquetoast as David Pakman can't even get access to AOC? The narrative that you've been told is a lie.
That in total, if you look at the top 5 or 10 left-wing YouTube shows, this is one of them, right? If you look at the top 5 or 10 YouTube shows, we are talking about tens of millions of subscribers, hundreds of millions, if not over 1 billion views a month. And Democrats just kind of don't do it. Okay, now Brian Tyler Cohen gets some of them. There's no doubt he did get a Biden.
Brian Tyler Cohen gets some of them. Brian Tyler Cohen gets a lot of them. He interviewed the President of the United States while he was president, I believe. And he had Nancy Pelosi, and he has had many Democrats on his channel. In fact, he has Democrats that come on his show on a regular basis. He's even doing an actual sort of a program where I think he talks about the Constitution with, Raskin? Right? But let David Pakman tell it, yeah, Brian Tyler Cohen gets a few of them. No, he gets a lot. He's practically a mini MSNBC.
And he's interviewed Kamala Harris.
Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman have it wrong. What's new? So recently, right after the Donald Trump win, the thing that David Pakman was concerned about is his subscribers. A guy with over 1 million subscribers is concerned about, I think he lost something like 5,000 subscribers. Right? Who the hell cares about you losing subscribers? Remember that this is the end of democracy and this is the last election and you're worried about losing a measly 5,000 subscribers. I could see if it was like 50,000 or something that would actually have some kind of impact, but 5,000 subscribers is irrelevant to a channel such as David Pakman, but yet he's all worried about that. And then here's something, I want you right-wingers to pay attention to this. So David Pakman revealed some behind-the-scenes information. I'm glad that this is coming out now. And he talked about that he struggles to get Democrats on his channel. Now, if you're a conservative, you've been lied to for quite some time that people like AOC are radical left. They want socialism and the left is controlling the party and all this kind of stuff. The Democrats have gone too far left. If that's the case, first of all, there are people, let's say, I'm going to give you believe AOC is radical. Okay, let's paint her as radical. There are folks on the left that make her look very moderate, right? AOC is not for getting rid of the police. There are people on the left who literally want to get rid of the police, right? That's a thing. I'm sure you've heard about it because right-wing media likes to lie to you by highlighting these wackos and make it seem as if that's what the left wants and painting the Democratic Party as left-wing. They're certainly not right-wing, but they're not really very extreme at all. They're very much in the center and leaning to the right. But here's a key detail. I want you to consider this logic. If the Democratic Party is so extreme, right, why is it that they would not want to go on a progressive media channel like David Pakman? I mean, David Pakman is so friendly to Democrats. I mean, he will critique them here and there, but I mean, he's not really a threat to the Democratic Party. And he's not talking about anything radical, man. He might agree with you on positions with Israel, perhaps, right? That's where he stands, right? He's not a radical guy at all whatsoever. Let Ben Shapiro tell it, he's absolutely radical. But again, why would somebody like AOC not be on shows like The Young Turks, David Pakman? I don't know if I've even seen her on Brian Tyler Cohen. She probably has because he's the biggest access journalist that we have, right? He's interviewed Joe Biden, right? This guy is a major Democratic Party cheerleader, and he is a big part of the reason why Donald Trump won, right? Because of people like Brian Tyler Cohen, The Democrats, when they win, are able to get away, well, they were for a while, of just skating by, just the bare minimum, right? Any accomplishments that they make, he's going to be there, loud microphone, infrastructure bill, and that was a good accomplishment, right? But they needed to do so much more, right? But what was the driving force to push them to do more? You got mainstream media that's just sitting there, yeah, Democrats this and those crazy Republicans, right? And then you got Brian Tyler Cohen, yeah, they're good. Joe Biden did this and Joe Biden did this other thing and those crazy Republicans, right? So who's the one pushing the Democrats to do more? Wackos like Jimmy Dore? That's what we're going to rely on? That's going to be the pressure to get the Democrats to do more? No, it's you guys with your multi-million subscriber channels, right? People like Brian Tyler Cohen. If you guys were lighting a fire under Joe Biden's presidency and telling him, you said you're going to increase minimum wage, what happened with that? You don't even talk about it anymore. When, Joe Manchin did his thing about, I don't know what the numbers were, but I don't want to increase to 15, but I'll do 12, right? And then the Democrats don't take that counteroffer, so they do nothing, so we don't get any increase. You ran on increasing minimum wage, you push for a solid number, and one guy in your party doesn't like that number, but he's like, yeah, we can increase minimum wage, but just not to that number. And you're just like, whatever. And then you just walk away and you never even talk about it anymore. Just like, whatever, right? The only way you can do that and get away with it politically is you need an entire infrastructure of cheerleaders like Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, MSNBC, CNN. You guys are the ones that gave the Democrats the permission structure to do the bare minimum. And that is why Joe Biden, who barely won in 20, because a lot of people were not really motivated because of the track record of the Democrats just doing the bare minimum, right? They weren't very excited, but things were chaotic, right? So major turnout. So a lot of people reluctantly voted for Joe Biden, right? Based on the craziness, based on his promises, stuff that he actually didn't deliver on, talking about the game he played with the stimulus check and the game he played with, talking about minimum wage and then what happened with that, right? And then you guys let him drag his feet. And when people complain, like, you got to get to work, you guys, instead of, lighting a fire on them, right? And it doesn't escape me that you guys mildly, not Brian Tyler Cohen, but like David Pakman and others, mildly sort of little pressure here and there, like, hey, Democrats, you could do a little more, like, very subtle. And it is because of that people like AOC and other Democrats, that's why they don't want to come on your channels. But think about that. Just for your mild critiques. So I do realize a little bit of a conundrum. For your mild critiques, your mild, subtle, you guys should do more, you guys get blacklisted, right? The Democratic Party doesn't want to come on your channels, right? Meanwhile, liars like Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool pretend like, the left, far left is controlling the party and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the media that caters to the so-called far left doesn't even have access to Democrats. I mean, think about it. Even AOC. She's supposed to be the radical. She's the progressive, whatever. And the progressive media folks have to beg her to come on the channel. You think Ben Shapiro and Tim Pool and Steven Crowder have been lying about what the reality is? Listen, man. Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, I think I'll even put Destiny in on this. You guys are wrong. Voting alone is not enough. You need to vote with demands, and there must be consequences of failure. And it's not about expecting them to do perfectly and accomplish every single thing they said. But it is a requirement that if we're going to vote for you, you've got to promise us that you're going to fight to deliver what you said you was going to do. So it's not going to be easy to come up with excuses and say, well, we tried, but Joe Manchin. We want to know what's next. What's the next strategy? Okay, that failed. What's the next strategy? Okay, that failed. What's the next strategy? We want to see you fighting. And if we don't see you fighting, right? Failure to deliver on what you said you were going to do. That in itself is not the problem, right? Because I don't think we can require you to deliver on every single thing exactly as you promised. But what we absolutely can demand of our politicians is that you fight legitimately for what you said you were going to do. We should have been sick and tired of hearing Joe Biden talk about minimum wage, right? All the chaos. What is Joe Biden up to now? Again, he's trying another angle to deliver on minimum wage, but we didn't see that, right? We sort of saw that with the student loan forgiveness. But don't think the American people didn't recognize how long it took to get there, how low Joe Biden's ratings had to go before he started trying to, okay, well, let me try to do this, let me try to do that, right?
One of the reasons that Democrats are afraid to go on independent media on the left is because it is not safe for them. This is one of the differences or contrasts between left-wing and right-wing media. If I'm Donald Trump, I'm totally comfortable going on a Steven Crowder, a Ben Shapiro show. If I'm a Republican in general, as long as I'm not calling out the Republican Party legitimately for corruption, as opposed to theatrically, like say a Marjorie Taylor Greene might, then I'm totally comfortable going on independent right-wing media. I'm not worried about it at all. However, it is more risky for a Democrat to go on independent media, right? Why is that? Because independent left-wing media is far more honest than independent right-wing media. such that even somebody as milquetoast as David Pakman might ask a question that might be something that might not make you look so good, right? You go on a Ben Shapiro show, you're good, man. He's gonna say, it's an honor to see you and I'm glad that you're here and I respect everything you did, right? It's gonna be just a slop fest, right? So a right-wing media person listening to this video would tell you that the reason why, Republicans are comfortable going on independent media shows because they're braver and the Democrats are afraid. But, the Democrats have a reason to be afraid. They know that they're not doing enough, right? They don't want their bubble to be burst. The Republicans, on the other hand, don't have to worry about their bubble being burst, right? Their corporate interests are being preserved and protected by independent right-wing media is not going to go after them for their corruption and whatever they're doing for their donors, right? A Democrat, on the other hand, possibly might be exposed to some degree, depending on which independent media show they go on, right? It is risky for them. Right-wing independent media won't expose Republicans, but left-wing independent media will expose Democrats. Correction, right-wing media will expose Republicans, but only if they challenge the corruption of the Republican Party legitimately. Say someone like Liz Cheney, who was a warmonger before, but right-wing media was fine with her up until she spoke out against Donald Trump. Then all of a sudden, let's talk about how awful Liz Cheney is. But everybody else in the Republican Party, you're good to go. No matter how corrupt you are, you can safely go on right-wing media channels and you're good to go. The only risk is if you threaten MAGA, then you have an issue. But other than that, you're good.
The only way that the Democratic Party can get away with dragging their feet, which leads to depressing their base, the only way they can get away with that is with the ecosystem we have with people like Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, and others who, basically give them cover to do this, right? Some of them made excuses. When Joe Biden got elected, this guy elected, give him time. Listen, man, you guys talk about how critical things are, how Americans are suffering, and, how important it is that these issues get resolved. There's a lot of pain in this country. You talk about it in such dire terms. Yet, when your politician wins, you don't act like it. You act like it. Now you're going to act like it again, right? When you're out of power, oh my goodness, dissent, fascism, right? But then when your politician wins, you don't act as if the building's on fire, right? There isn't that sense of urgency. I mean, you guys should have been, across the board, left-wing media should have been going crazy about why Joe Biden is taking so long, why he's being so passive, why isn't he fighting harder? What is he waiting for? That should have been a major, resounding message from folks like Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman. But people like Brian Tyler Cohen, he's running a business. That's the problem with our for-profit media business. He's running a business, right? Part of his business, he wants access to these Democrats. How can he be honest about Democrat weakness and still get access to them? Look at what's happening to people like David Pakman, who mildly critique the Democrats. He can't even get AOC. So Brian Tyler Cohen chooses his business success over fighting for what's right, pushing the Democrats. Because we've seen when the Democrats don't deliver, what happens. We've seen this already. And yet here we are again. And what is the lesson that Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman have learned from this? We need more left-wing propaganda cheerleaders. He specifically says, right, because we're not right-wing media, so I'm going to be honest in what I said. He specifically said that we shouldn't be cheerleaders. But in essence, he's saying we need more cheerleaders. Right? Even though he said that, and listen to the language, it's funny. I've been calling him out as a major left-wing propagandist, right, for quite some time. And now, after the loss with the election, it's like, it's mask off. Listen to what he's saying. He talks about how the right wing has this propaganda thing and we don't have an equivalent on the left. I mean, what else does that mean other than he wants a left wing propaganda machine? I mean, we already have one and you're one of the biggest propagandists on the left. Did you guys notice when Joe Biden had when he did the debate, that disastrous debate, where was Brian Tyler Cohen giving his honest commentary on the debate? I saw a lot of videos posted on it and I waited to see, would he say anything? Now, when Kamala won, sure enough, Mr. Cheerleader, Mr. Cohen was there. Right? Brian Tyler Cohen refuses to hold the Democrats accountable, which gives them the permission structure to do the bare minimum, which depresses the voters, which makes when Kamala comes up and talks about she's going to do all this stuff for the economy and whatever. Yes, we got bad faith actors. I want to talk about why she didn't do it already, even though she's the vice president, so she couldn't have done it already. But that's the bad faith right-wing rhetoric. But to the base, the Democratic Party base, when they hear her making all these promises, they're just like, listen, man, you guys got no credibility. You burned us in 20 once again. We reluctantly voted for you, and then you burnt us. And now we're supposed to listen. And think about it. The same people who have lost credibility from their voters wants to both talk about how they're going to fix everything, and then also talk about how Trump is going to destroy the country. Now, Trump is a major national security threat. I say that as a veteran. However, again, credibility, right? It's not that the message is wrong. It's the messenger. Right? The Democratic Party is the little boy that cried wolf. So to all those people talking about it's the Democratic messaging, two things can be correct, right? there is a big problem with their messaging, but that's not the biggest problem. One of the big problems is the fact that there's a lot of focus on messaging. I've heard this for years. Messaging. And again, yes, messaging is important, but that's not the biggest thing. The biggest focus should be on the actions of the Democratic Party, right? Do the work, and then you must communicate about the work effectively. So yes, the little work they do, they don't communicate effectively about it, but they need to do more work. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. As of now, we are still on the same dark path. We have learned nothing. The left has learned nothing. The Democratic Party has learned nothing. So what that means is, if we survive the next 4 years with Trump, what comes next is going to make us wish for the days of Trump again. After Donald Trump is finished with the country for 4 years, opening the door for someone much more clever than he is, someone not deranged. You think this election loss was bad, Brian, David? Imagine an election where instead of you losing 10 million votes on your side, imagine 20 million more people voting for the Republicans, because even liberals fall for the sane Trump, the smart Trump, meaning a guy that is like Trump, a MAGA guy, but not insane and is very strategic. That kind of person has the ability to pull liberals to their side. Imagine an election where it's not like Trump really won this election. The Democratic Party really lost the election. That's the biggest factor that made Trump president again. But imagine if they actually win, right? Imagine the people who didn't vote for Kamala and let Trump win. Imagine they actually voted for Trump. That's what's coming if you guys don't wake the fuck up. I know you're running businesses, but consider the lives of the people who've been supporting you for a very long time. You guys are very wealthy. You got your health care, right? You don't have to worry about housing. But there's a lot of regular Americans who've been supporting you and giving their money to you, right? They're going to suffer the consequences of you guys continuing to do what you've been doing. You have a decision to make. Continue being an extreme version of mainstream media, doing the stuff that they do, but even to a higher level, being even more partisan than MSNBC. You can continue on that path. Or you can go the path of being true journalists. Lead by example. Show mainstream media the way it's done. Be just as hard on the Democrats as you are on the Republicans. Light a fire on the Democrats. Let them realize that they've got to do the work, or they're going to suffer the consequences. Get that message to them so they can change their ways, instead of allowing them to continue doing just the bare minimum. Because the consequences, well, you saw the last election.